With that, what does this mean going forward? I'd like to kind of keep this short so we can get some nice sound bites out of this. Drew, what's your takeaway of what this is going forward?
I think we're going to look back on last night in the coming years as a real turning point, for good or ill, depending on your perspective or how it comes out. Boris Johnson is likely to be a very consequential prime minister. We're talking about the UK leaving the EU, pretty big thing right in and of itself, and also a really good chance that in a few years, Scotland will not be part of the UK. This country could look very different at the end of his premiership than it does the day it starts.
It's a good point. What do you think, Robert?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to understate exactly how big of a change we saw last night. I mean, the reason why a lot of people thought we were heading towards a hung parliament was because they had been clinging on to priors that Labour can't lose a seat like Redcar or Bolsover or Basseltaw or even Halifax. And seats like those, they're all like so many of them are gone. And it's even worse too because there's so many more. There's another whole level of seats. You look at like there's other seats like Doncaster North with Ed Miliband. That's a 2,000 seat majority.
So losing all these seats, what does it mean? What's the succinct analysis?
It means basically Boris Johnson broke through the red wall, and there's still more for him to break through. It's like with Donald Trump, he broke through the blue wall in 2016. Imagine if there was another Ohio and another Pennsylvania and then like another Wisconsin that he could break through in 2020 that he just didn't win. Like imagine if there was another 2 or 3 Minnesotas left, and that's what we're looking at in the North. And it's like this is a redrawing of the political map, and it's not even done yet.
So you think, yes or no, you think the next time they have elections, the Conservatives, I mean, a lot can happen in politics, but the Conservatives could gain more seats?
In the North, yes.
Okay.
They'll lose some in the South, but they'll gain more in the North.
Gotcha. Evan, what's your take?
It's a disunited kingdom. The Tories have won England. Labour still wins Wales, but not by as much as they usually do. Scotland is gone for unionist parties at this point. And Northern Ireland, there are serious questions about the potential unification of Ireland. And the United Kingdom's looking a lot more disunited this morning than it did this time yesterday.
Do you agree with Robert that the Conservatives could, I mean, there's still room for them to win some more seats next time around?
There's at least 15 on the board. I could see them winning in 2023 or 2024, yeah.
Gotcha. Podcool, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I'm curious to see some research that comes out of this election, just to really parse out what were some of the main causes in voters' minds about this. Was this truly an anti-Corbyn race, or was this a Brexit election? And I think, as of right now, back of the envelope, you could argue both. You could argue both ways. I'm pretty convinced by just the relationship of Brexit vote with the swing in the Conservative vote share from 2017. Those are pretty highly correlated, but I don't want to commit any ecological fallacies. So I'm curious to just see kind of what some of the explanations come out.
What do you got, trying to play 29-point word on Words with Friends, ecological fallacies? I mean, the interesting thing here to me is, look, both Boris Johnson and Jeremy Corbyn had sub 50% approval ratings, and that felt a lot like October 2016 in America. And at the end of the day, they just thought Jeremy Corbyn was that much worse, which was funny to me because this was billed as a, do you want to remain or leave? And instead, you're running on personalities. And Boris Johnson is a personality, and Corbyn is just that much more of a personality. And everyone was just like, fuck it, I hate you all, but I'm going to take Boris. And I think that's the takeaway. I mean, you had a graph up last night, Podcool, about, the correlation with Brexit and where some of these parties are going. The British seem to tactically vote more, and by tactically vote, they seem very more nuanced in who they're going to vote for, and they seem to put a lot more into it than we do in the U.S. And so I think, last night, despite it being the turnout what it was, it's not necessarily, I mean, they put some thought into this.
Yeah,
that actually brings up something that I wanted to ask you guys about, is what happens when you look at, first of all, the Lib Dems had a terrible night, but where are the seats where they split the vote with the Labour candidate that they might have been able to capture? And also Conservatives lost a couple of seats because the Brexit Party was still on the ballot. So there are some of those seats where the environment may change, and those more minor parties may fall to the wayside and shuffle the deck a little bit.
What do you think, Podcool? Or what you were saying before?
Well, no, I was just going to say, I think as much as we want to focus on some of these individual seats, and I think Drew's right to point out some of these, because it all depends on who's on the ballot in these constituencies, and I think everybody's going to be taking a closer look as to where did the Brexit Party play spoiler, what's going on with the Lib Dems all over the place. But all I was going to say is just if we just take a step up from those idiosyncrasies, it was just a consistent loss of labor. And as much as we want to tell a regional story here, just everywhere, it was just like a linear 8-point shift down, pretty much in all of the constituencies when we average it out. And so I'm just convinced that it was really an anti-labor story across the map. As much as I want to
Anti-labor or anti-Corbyn?
Well, there's really no way for me to parse that out.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what's your gut tell you?
I mean, my gut tells me it's anti-Corbyn.
Okay.
But it was just overall, there was just this overall...
Because that's what the narrative's going to be.
Yeah.
I don't know what the data will say, but the narrative's it's Corbyn.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But why wasn't he dragged 2 years ago?
Well, I'd like to kind of throw something in about that too, because basically, if you look at a lot of people online on Twitter, they're all saying that, oh, we kept hearing about Corbyn when we talked to voters. And the thing is, I think the thing is, it's going to be, oh, it was all Corbyn's fault. He was too left wing. But at the same time, like, Brexit was right there. I think you could basically make the correlation that basically people hated Corbyn's position on Brexit, and therefore they also hated Jeremy Corbyn, right? Leavers hated Jeremy Corbyn because he wanted a second referendum, and Remainers hated Jeremy Corbyn because he wanted a second referendum and he wanted Leave to be on the ballot, and he wanted like a different Brexit deal. So I think you can make the argument that both sides hated him because of Brexit. And I mean, there's other reasons too. There's also anti-Semitism and other scandals that he had. But again, I think there's a very strong argument that Brexiters particularly hated him because of his stance on a Brexit deal and a second referendum.
Gotcha. Closing question for everyone. Scottish National Party, is there going to be a Scottish referendum, and are they going to be part of the UK in 2021? Yes or no? So it's two questions. Is there going to be a referendum, and are they going to be part of the UK? What do you think, Evan?
They're gonna hold a referendum. They're gonna win the referendum, and 2021 will be the transition year while they get all their affairs in order to leave.
Gotcha. What do you think, Robert?
Yeah, agree. I think we'll be back here on another UK election night in a year. We'll have a Scottish independence referendum model, and the Leave vote will win it, and they will leave the United Kingdom.
What do you think, Podcool?
Yeah. Play the bagpipes. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I happen to agree with it. I'm probably the least knowledgeable about all of this, just because most of what I've read about this has been this morning. But I mean, these guys. I mean, just look at what the S&P ran on. Like, how could they not end up there? I'm gonna leave it to the only person I know who cares about soccer, Drew. What do you think?
Yeah, I think
like
people are going to
Scottish
start
soccer,
watching
right?
Braveheart a lot more. They're gone.